Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to wait for a few others to join us, and then we'll get started. Thank you for joining us. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Pee-Posh, good day. On behalf of Unity, we want to welcome you to Unity's fall webinar series. Today's subject is called Best Practices in Youth Council Development. And we are very happy to see some familiar faces, familiar names that have joined us this afternoon. You know, when this pandemic hit us, Unity had to look to other alternative ways to continue our dialogue and opportunities to network with our Unity advisors and professionals that work in youth development. So again, we welcome you today. We're excited about today's webinar. And so with that, we're going to start off with prayer. And I'm going to ask one of our staff members, Ms. Tammy Patterson, who serves as our office manager and one of our program coordinators, to open this webinar with prayer. Tammy?
Yes. Creator, we just call on you to be with us today. We are here for our Native youth, and we just thank you for the everything that's going to be talked about today. We ask you to bless this discussion, that good seeds are planted so that we can be instrumental in the growth, whether it be personal or them as a cohesive youth council, and a blessing to their communities. So we just thank you for this opportunity, and we're just asking you to touch this time in the only way that you can, and that's giving us hope and clarity and purpose. And we thank you for this in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tammy. You know, prayer is so important to our tribal nations, our tribal communities, especially during this time period. You know, a lot of our people are hurting, some are in mourning, and our young people are in need of people to help support them during this period. And definitely thank you, Tammy, for the prayers, because prayers are often needed in our tribal communities. So thank you. You know, just to share a little about who I am, my name is Greg Mendoza, and I'm going to be serving as the host for this afternoon's webinar. I am of 3 tribes. I'm of the Akimel, I'm Thana, and I'm also Pasco Yaqui. I'm enrolled with the Gila River Indian community located in Arizona. I have the honor and the privilege to work for Unity as its fund development manager. I was a former member of the Unity Council of Trustees from 1997 to 2019. I delved into tribal politics for 9 years. I was chief of staff, I was a council member, and I had the privilege of serving my people as the youngest governor for the Gila River Indian community. I'm the founder and the director for the Akimel Pee-Posh Youth Council. I served in that capacity from 1988 to 2005. I served 17 years with our young people within the Gila River Indian community. I've been a Unity alumnus since 1985. So again, I'm privileged to see how Unity's evolved through the years and to be able to be here to share my knowledge and my experiences with Unity has been really wonderful for me. So I'm thankful to be here and I'm happy to serve as your host. Now, the next person that I like to introduce to you is someone that's very special to me. I have known this young lady since high school, and I'm so proud of her accomplishments, the things that she's done for herself, her community, and most importantly, to her family. Her name is Ginger Lynn Martin. Ginger is Akimel. She is from the Gila River Indian community. She owns and manages Sunbird Enterprises, LLC. Her business specializes in cultural sensitivity, diversity, inclusion, programming, corporate change training since 2011. She is a founding member and the second president for the Akimel Pee-Posh Youth Council. She is an original Unity Earth Ambassador. She was selected back in 1990, and she also had the honor of presenting a special gift on behalf of Unity to the former First Lady Barbara Bush at the White House in the Rose Garden. Ginger holds a Bachelor of Science degree in American Indian Studies from Arizona State University. Ginger has held titles of Miss Gila River, first attendant to Miss Indian Arizona Teen, and first attendant to Miss National Congress of American Indians. So this young lady who I am so proud of, I admire her for her work, especially in educating a lot of our tribal communities and the corporate sector, particularly on the issue of cultural sensitivity, which is so important today, that inclusion, that diversity. She possesses all those skills, so I'm just so excited that she could join us this afternoon. So please join me in welcoming Miss Ginger Lynn Martin. Ginger?
Oh, great. Shape Masama, everyone. Thank you, Greg, for a wonderful stroll down memory lane there. Definitely honored to be here today and really humbled to share my experiences of what it was like to create that first ever. And so very excited to share some of those tips and just ways that it came about. So pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Good. Ginger, I'm going to ask you one question before we go on.
Sure.
Okay. Looking back to your journey and the first time we met,
Yes.
What were your thoughts?
Who's this guy who wants to pick up a bunch of kids and do something with us? Why are my parents making me go with him? That was the first thought, the unknown, right? But then after the first one or two visits, it was kind of fun to look at. Clueless still, by the way, Greg, to what the big picture was. You were offering food, transportation, other youth to come together, and we had no parents. So that was excitement number one. So I think that's a key takeaway right away, is to realize you're dealing with young people and those things matter, right? From there, you build all of the practices of the desire to create leadership in young people and understand that role. So I can tell you one of my favorite takeaways was you bringing in a guest speaker and teaching us to speak on a microphone, like do introductions on a microphone. And I always say, who would have thought we would need that type of practice? And it was so embarrassing, right? Everyone kind of pulled away. Everyone just sort of was embarrassed, low voice. But I tell young people today, I am so thankful for that training, because that microphone now makes money for me. And so it's just a great connection years later. So good memories there.
Thank you, Ginger, for sharing those memories. And You know, we've come a long ways, and I'm so proud and so proud of your family. So thank you. What I wanted to share here with you is a news clipping from the Gila River Indian News that was dated for June 9th, 1988. I'm not sure if some of you were born then, but this iconic news clipping is the foundation for when we talk about best practices in youth council development. This is where the journey started for me and for many other young people, not only in my community, but in communities throughout the country. You know, this photo depicts a very young Greg Mendoza. You'll see him at the bottom there with some a very thin mustache. And this group took a year to volunteer their time to advocate for the establishment of a Gila River Youth Council that would serve as a voice for young people. This iconic news clipping is the foundation of how everything started at Gila River. And so, again, humble beginnings, humble beginnings. You know, the title of today's webinar is Best Practices in Youth Council Development. The Youth Council serves as a mechanism to provide young people of the community an active, nonpartisan voice in tribal affairs, provide constructive activities for young people, and enable young people to help solve problems affecting them. You know, there are many practices in Indian country when we talk about developing a youth council. And like I said, today, for today's webinar, we're going to use the Gila River Youth Council as sort of the model that's been cited in research through Harvard University and others that have studied the Gila River Youth Council as a model program. And so we're going to use that as a model, but just know that there's other models all over the country. And what's so unique about Indian country is that we, as Native peoples and communities, we love to share ideas and thoughts, new methods, new approaches when it comes to helping our young people. And so again, this is just Gila River's approach. Salt River is different. Donaotham is different. Akimel is different. You know, you have other youth councils throughout the country that have different structures, you know, and again, Unity supports that. We support all structures as long as it brings young people together. You know, when we talk about what are youth council development practices, these are just some of the basic practices that have been used in the process, you know, decision making, goal setting, problem solving, relation building, communicating, listening, self-awareness, empathy. Ginger, what are your thoughts when we talk about these practices?
Yes, well, very well identified. Those are all things that come into play for a successful council. And I would like to comment on the photo that you shared earlier, the newspaper article, because I think that is the number one place for anyone to start. And that is with a group of committed volunteers who are willing to do the work. And the work comes in two parallels. It's one, acquiring the students to participate, and then creating the organization efforts in how that's done. So, for example, I think about the recruiting of young people. Like, how did Greg decide to pick me? I don't know, but what I can say is that you want to recruit young people on potential and not accomplishments. Because I can tell you, when Greg acquired me, I was suffering from the loss of a loved one. I was in an identity crisis. You know, there's just so many things that young people go through as a part of life that you need that mentor, that adult, that compassionate person with the empathy to kind of see through that and say, man, you have some potential. And so I think that when you recruit and identify those youth, that's the second most important thing after the group of volunteers, to first start in the endeavor.
Okay. Ginger, going back to 1988 when you were elected, you were one of 14 that were elected to represent your home community. What were your thoughts about even the thought of running, and why would you want to be a voice for your fellow peers in the community?
Sure. I think a lot of that is going to go to the credit of the group responsible for us in preparation to train us to prepare for what's called the leadership role. And what was great about that preparation was you, Greg, you guys used the tribal council as the model. So it was very easy to make the connection of the role we'd want to. Now comes the training or the tools to sort of prepare for that role, whether it's public speaking or writing a speech, or even to be the first one to raise a hand and participate in a group setting. Those are the types of things that I can remember really helped prepare me. And my thought process was, wow, I can do this. Why? I had 10 adults telling me I have potential and I could be anything that I desire as a leader. So that support from that group of volunteers really makes all the difference in what you think of as a student when you participate. Plus, we were grassroots. I always like to tease folks that my perspective is coming from a time known as BC. And I joke that that's before casinos, because everything back then was definitely grassroots. We didn't have a budget. We didn't have a group of monies to dig into. Everything was families coming together to raise money so that we can participate and do certain things. And so I think my recommendation at this point would be to prepare to be prepared. Have those skill sets in place before you're prepared to go out there and make an impression, because everyone would be looking, because you are going to be measured some way, especially if you're saying you're going to model current leadership.
Yeah. Thank you. So what makes a great youth council? Develop, don't train. Collaboration abilities are very important for today's leaders. To possess mentoring, training, organizational planning with individual activities such as term rotation, job shadowing with tribal leaders, project leaders are often components of effective youth councils. And, as Ginger pointed out, when we think about some of the practices, again, good practices for youth council, she stated, we use our own tribal leadership, our council as the model. So, and again, having representation. Our community has 7 political districts that make up the Gila River Indian community. So we wanted to make sure that we had that representation throughout the whole community, and to make sure that all voices were inclusive of the whole community. And so I believe those opportunities, what makes a good youth council, and these others, as mentioned, mentoring, training, organizational planning with individual activities. I believe youth councils have their own terms, their own rotations, and even just the opportunity to have a one-on-one with your tribal leadership also has that that connection with your leaders, so that they could fully understand the youth perspectives, their concerns, their issues. I think that's really important, to do this and to be involved in planning of their own projects. Gingers, any thoughts about any of these areas?
Absolutely. When you talk about planning your own projects, if you're in a position where you're just starting your council, that's great, because you can make that presence just by gathering and volunteering. It doesn't have to be anything big or magical. Just get out there and be seen and sort of live the principles that you want your organization to be. So if it's about being involved and giving, then make sure you act that and display that in some form or fashion. For those that are already established, you have a greater benefit to be more successful because you have built-in resources available to you and maximize them. Maybe you're in an opportunity to create something bigger and greater that hasn't been done. So remember, my perspective being grassroots and not tribally funded, we were scraping and fundraising to just get a DJ to host a tribal dance for everyone to come out, a teen dance. That was pretty good back then. So small little efforts like that, tap into your resources, create relationships, and you'll find there's a lot of willing people who want to help personally, professionally, and as organizations.
Thank you, Ginger. You know, just reflecting back on that time period for me, you know, we had to break down a lot of the thoughts of the leadership because, you know, back in 1987, when this movement started, our community was different. There was not a lot of activity for our young people. And as Ginger pointed out, BC, before Casino, we didn't have the resources to help support our programming. And oftentimes, you know, I believe the current youth council, they go through orientation and they go through the methodology or the chronological history behind the program to make them understand that our youth council came from very humble beginnings, you know, and the leadership at the time was very supportive to our efforts, you know, of wanting to create change within our community. It had to involve the young people, but also the leadership of the community, the governor, the lieutenant governor, and our tribal council to buy into this process, which wasn't an easy process for us during our first year. We literally had to, again, educate our tribal leaders about the importance of having youth at the table. And, you know, there are some youth councils today that are doing that. And we commend you for taking on that leadership role to being there at the table. And I think that's most important today when we talk about developing, whether it's a youth council or youth program. Our young people today need to be a part of that process. They need to be at the table. And I think what's so unique about the model we're sharing here is that our leadership bought into that and fully recognized the youth council in 1988, you know, giving them that recognition, which I believe is so important. You know, even today, you know, young people are striving, and some of them are just so thirsty to be part of their community, their culture. You know, they want to be a part of it. You know, our young people today are more active and they're more aware of their surroundings, not only in their community, but outside of the communities. You know, take for instance, our recent election, you know, a lot of young people, there are studies now that are saying that a lot of young people came out to vote. And a lot of that is happening now in Indian country. Young people are starting to get involved, knowing that they have a purpose and they have a voice. And so again, when we talk about youth council development, you know, this is what we're doing, is we're creating these leaders today. And again, Ginger was one of my first, and I'm just so proud to see how she has evolved and has grown and has educated her through the process, through her own journey, to see what she's doing now. And what she's doing today is she's contributing back, not only to our community, but to other Indian communities. And that's the great thing about seeing this, even more so now. When I work with young people, I see the growth in these young people. They see that they have purpose, and now they're contributing. You know, and I wanted to share that these are some of the factors that appear to be powerful contributors to a youth council's success. As I mentioned before, community recognition that youth can and should play a critical role in governance and decision-making. Ginger, what are your thoughts about that? Community recognition.
Yes, I think it's just as important a role because that's the environment that the action is going to take place in. So to recognize the community, to show how it operates. I mean, I remember presentations on tribal budgets, departments, how things take place. I think that's so key for them to understand where they can see themselves and participate or even dream bigger and better. Also, when you talk about the vote, I remember our youth council created a relationship with kids voting, and we ran the little kids voting at the same time we had our elections. And what we're talking about, the end result, of course, is generations of young people in leadership roles. That's to me what the youth council has done and continues to do. And so I think of my 5 nephews that I raise, and my oldest just turned 18 in August, and we took him to the polls to participate. And I don't think it would have been that important maybe to me if I didn't see and understand at an early age those processes. So I think community recognition is huge and right on for making sure how powerful and successful a youth council can be.
Thank you, Ginger. Another factor is the tribal government. Our government treats the youth council like any other tribal program and department. And you know, this youth council has been in operation now for 33 years and is fully funded by the tribe, which makes it very effective in helping to design programs for our youth, for our community. Another factor is the youth council's commitment to investing in itself. You know, I believe we have some of our former members that are on this webinar, and I'm gonna do a shout out to them if they are on this webinar. Nicole Bonnie, are you there? Nicole Bonnie? What about Orly Mercado? Well, hopefully, hopefully they're not on mute, but again, youth council's commitment to investing in itself. And for example, the youth council does have a robust, well-documented, and periodically updated bylaws that show that it pays attention to its own governance. What does that mean to you, Ginger?
Yes. For me, I just think that that's the model. Again, we have to show the young people something to follow. And so the paying attention to how that's done really matters. So for example, when we were first told about how do the tribal leaders run their meetings, there's something called Parliamentary Procedures. What is that and what do we do with it? And oh my gosh, you know, pretty intense. We had another guest speaker who talked about the importance of bylaws and constitutions and what makes up an organization to follow. And so I think those are 2 examples of how the governance example is so important to the success of it because it's what you want them to model. And so to bring just those 2 pieces in to the young people's education will help them be successful. And they're tools that are lifelong. How many other meetings are held with parliamentary procedures and interactions? And then how many of us participate in organizations that hold bylaws and constitutions and hold us accountable for our behavior? So very important.
Thank you. I wanted to cite an example like today, Michael Preston, who is the current coordinator for the Akimel and Pee-Posh Youth Council, is currently presenting his annual report as we speak to one of our tribal council standing committees. And when we talk about the tribal government treating the youth council like any other tribal government program or department. That's what makes it powerful within our community. And Michael did say that he will try to make this webinar, but that committee was going to reconvene at the same time that this webinar was starting. So again, Michael having to be held accountable for those funds that are given to him annually, and to make a report on the accomplishments, the goals, the objectives. And again, that's what we talk about as being a very powerful contributor. And I understand Michael is on the call. Michael, are you there?
Yes, sir. I just reported.
Good. Tell me, Michael, we're happy to have you on. For those of you on the call, Michael served as the president of the Akimel and Pee-Posh Youth Council. And Michael also served as the male co-president for the Unity National Council. Michael, we're talking about powerful contributors to a youth council's success. And we were talking about the factors that make a youth council successful. We pointed out community recognition, tribal government treating the youth council like any program or department, and the youth council's commitment to investing in itself. Tell me, what were your thoughts in presenting that annual report before one of our tribal council standing committees?
It wasn't too difficult because our students are really involved and passionate about what they do. So sharing what they do and how they do it, it's pretty easy. And then just trying to fill in how we support them. And it really is the consistency. Being there, the students know we're going to meet every 2 weeks. The students know I'm reaching out to them we use an application called Slack. So I have an advisory board member who are volunteers. I'm really fortunate to have 7 really great advisory board members. And we will reach out to them to check up on them, see how they're doing. If we hear things like if they did an accomplishment, or if the team they're with or their school's doing well in a certain area, we'll congratulate them. So maintaining that contact with them beyond just the work, it really helps maintain their involvement in the youth council.
And Michael, you served in a very key role because you served as an administrator that has a responsibility to report on behalf of the youth council to the tribal leadership. And you as the administrator, you have been tasked to oversee a budget, a staff, and again, be able to report the youth council like you did today, the annual report. Any thoughts about that process? Because when we talk about successful youth councils being held accountable, you're doing exactly that. Michael, any thoughts?
Well, in regards to the reporting on our budget and being accountable, it's just another oversight, knowing that the students have to show their work and what they're doing. It's not just doing an activity to host it, it's how is it benefiting the community? How's it benefiting other youth, and how is it benefiting the community? And as we all know, we have to justify our use of dollars. And so that's a different part to my job, which isn't as fun as working with the students, but it's still something to make sure that they get the resources that they need and that continued support. And so we've been fortunate that we've had the support of our leadership for over 30 years. And so that's something we're really fortunate to have, but it's also a testament to the legacy because we have people serving on council who've been on youth council. And we have people who work throughout the community in management and leadership roles that have all been on youth council or been involved with the youth council in one way or another, even if they didn't serve. And for them to see the benefits of it, we get a lot of support, and I'm very grateful and thankful for that.
Thank you, Michael. You know, and for those that are on the webinar, we have 2 of our leaders on this webinar. We have Ginger Martin and Michael Preston, and they both have served in the leadership capacity. And just, you know, for either Ginger or Michael, and for those that are on the webinar, you know, you've been a part of this. You've been a part of this program that has been in operation now in its third year, I believe. And you've seen all of the young people that have gone through the program. You've seen them have, a lot of them have grown through the process. A lot of them have gone beyond and come back to the community to be able to contribute back to their community. And a lot of them have gone on to receive their education and to the feeling of wanting to help their people. What has that meant to you, Ginger or Michael, you know? And I know Nicole Bonnie may be on the call as well. Please share your thoughts. For those that are working on developing a youth council, those that may be interested in developing a youth council, what would your message be to them, those that are on this webinar, those advisors that are working toward developing a youth council, and those that maybe are struggling, you know? Any thoughts?
Sure, I'll go first. I would just like to remind people that are first starting is to realize that there may take some convincing taking place. Like, how does a group of adults who is not familiar with the model of a youth council buy in? And so it requires a lot of relationship building to show leadership that you are serious about creating young leaders through this program. My second thought would be is to remind you that the group of people you acquire for your youth council, it would be to remind them that they're there to serve other people. This isn't an inclusive group. This is a group that helps the other groups. And so that's a pretty powerful way of looking at a role, as opposed to being maybe self-serving, but to be more group serving in that thought process, because the outcomes are seen years down the road. Whether the youth council member becomes an actual tribal council leader, we've seen that example, or just phenomenal contributing Native American citizens, whether it's being a good mom or running a program or developing your own business. There's so many success stories in Indian country, and we just need more of that. So I would say that those would be my thoughts.
Any thoughts, Michael?
No, I think Ginger covered it. I know we all work with the young people in a different capacity and reach them in different ways. One thing I just had a discussion with the chairman of the committee I just reported was just continue to look for those new ideas. And last webinar, I actually got some good tips from some of the advisors. So I want to thank those advisors who shared from the one I was in, and I've been using some of the applications they shared. And we're working with 2 other youth councils right now, virtually, and we're exchanging ideas, and we're gonna have virtual meetups. In December, we have a virtual group activity with 2 youth councils. And so we're just gonna continue to do that right now. And our students look forward to it because it gives them something new, a new experience, and widening their network. And so just being able to adapt to everything, the situation, and then just constantly being open to ideas, new ideas and partnerships.
Okay. Well, with all of that in mind, you know, we have a lot of familiar names and faces on this webinar. Is there any questions that any of you may have in regards to anything that was discussed about youth council development? Any questions out there? You know, and I'm familiar with some of the work of those that are on the call. We have Marla Antone from the Akimel Indian Community Youth Council doing some awesome stuff. And then we have Christine Porter with the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community and their youth council that are very active in their councils. And like I said, all youth councils are very different, structured different. And again, you know, that's what makes it really unique. You know, when we talk about Unity's network, we have over 320 youth councils in 36 states. And that's awesome, because I remember when it first started, the movement, you know, it has grown over the years, and we're very thankful for those tribes that see the benefits as Gila River does. You know, we see the benefits we see the growth and the success of our young people today. You know, we see that, you know. Any thoughts out there? Any questions from our webinar participants? Is Nicole Bonnie on the call? What about Orlean Mercado? They may be on mute, so we'll continue to go on to our next slide. And again, these are just some of the lessons learned when we talk about best practices in youth council development. The Youth Council found that building an effective framework to engage youth in decision-making requires some of the following principles and actions. Statements about the importance of tribal youth should be backed by concrete investments in their development. Another lesson is with appropriate training, organizational support, youth can make meaningful contributions to tribal governance. They can offer input into issues affecting their peers, provide guidance and feedback in policy formulation, and serve as an effective spokesperson for the tribe. Like tribal governments, tribal youth councils require good organization, bylaws, staggered terms, code of ethics, election rules, clear processes for decision-making are institutional ingredients for success. And we had a study done on the Gila River Youth Council back in 2002, and these are the lessons that were learned through that process that they felt were important in meeting with our young people. These were the lessons that were developed as a result of that. Any thoughts, Ginger or Michael, in regards to lessons learned during this process? You know, and Ginger being the original member of this council and to see it to where it is today, 33 years later, what are your thoughts?
I would just say the power of encouragement to young people, because being the first female president, I remember at that time we didn't have a first female, so my goal was to be that. We had since then had definitely women serve in those leadership roles, but how powerful is that? So I would remind you that that encouragement is so meaningful. Even if you didn't have an organizational structure and all these things in place, the power of encouragement is life-changing. I would also say, don't forget about those little things. It's pretty fascinating to watch a kid take their first airplane ride, like to get to the Unity Conference. That was huge for us. We'd spent months fundraising and selling food to get there, and you know, to experience those things with young people for the first time. Even sitting at a formal banquet, we were so nervous, like how many forks do for what? You know, it was a true Julia Roberts moment of what do you do? How do you do this? But I also would say how wonderful to have Unity at its level now to be a parallel to the next level. Like, you know, once you create yours, here's a national organization that takes it there nationally, have the young people participate in Washington, D.C. and, you know, have their annual youth conference. It really was great to know that there were others just like you that had the same goals and desires and were gathering. So it really does set a foundation in a young person, any part of participating in the youth conference, whether it's an at-large member or volunteer or just being a younger sibling watching the older ones getting dropped off. Everything is impactful. For kudos to anyone who is really working the work and providing the future for our young people.
Michael, any thoughts?
Yeah, for me, one of the things that I learned, made lots of mistakes, of course, but one of the things I learned was even from our mistakes, from, how do I say this? From our not so successful events or projects that we've hosted, the students have learned a lot. And so it's just really taking that time. The debriefs are so important because they can see where they could have done better. They can see their shortcomings. They can also point out other people's strengths. And so it's really good to debrief after everything, even if it's not the most successful event, or the event was not how you thought it would go or you wanted it to go. Just getting them to realize that at a younger age, that, hey, we could have budgeted better, we could have planned better, we should have marketed it. And for them to kind of have those failures, but for you to support them while they fail, of course, you know, for us to have those failures, but really learn from it at a young age. They see, oh yeah, it really is up to me. It's going to be successful because of the energy I put into it, as opposed to relying on, you know, Michael's going to fix it or the department's going to take care of it. And so it's really reminding them over and over again that the success or failure is going to be up to them. And we're there as a support, we're there as administration for them. But other than that, just constantly encouraging them. And so that's one of the things I learned, because I thought like, well, everything should be successful. In order for them to learn, they should have a successful event or project. But I realized sometimes they learn a lot more when it's not so successful. And that really sticks with them because they hate to fail.
Good. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Now we're going to ask our participants. We have about 10 minutes left. I know that I see a familiar name, Dr. Newkirk. You're from the Gila River Indian community. Any thoughts?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Newkirk.
How are you?
Doing good, my friend.
Good, good. I would say that just from what I've been hearing, and you know my experience with the urban youth, is that they're looking for a home too. They're looking for participation in whatever way they can.
Yes.
With the community. Of course, you know that there's limited activities for our indigenous people as it is in the urban setting. So anything that can be extended to that population, I think would be a benefit.
Definitely. Definitely, Dr. Newkirk, I hear you there. I'm now urban now, and I live in Phoenix. And having had that opportunity to work with urban Native youth, is challenging. And as you know, Dr. Newkirk, I often shared this with not only the urban members, but all urbans, that I see them as survivors, you know, and their story is a good story, you know. A lot of them are urban for reasons, but those young people need that guidance during this period as well. And I believe the challenges are even more tougher for these urbans that live in these urban communities, metropolitan areas. So definitely, that's important. You know, we will definitely see what we can do. But I know in the Phoenix area, we have the Phoenix Indian Center. We have the Tucson Indian Center that offers support for urban Native young people. And definitely, Michael, that may be something that we may look at in the future, working with the urban Native youth there in the community. You know, we could work with them. I also see Miss Tammy Patterson. Now, Tammy, I know that you served as an advisor in the past. Can you share your thoughts based on some of the things that we've talked about, the different practices that were discussed? Anything you want to share?
Yes, I served as an advisor for 8 years to the Wananagazig Tribal Youth Council, which was one of 5 youth councils for the Sault Ste. Marie Tribe of Chippewa Indians. And they have a youth council that started 25 years ago that is, you know, still current today. And then I was able to work in the St. Ignace area, which is 50 miles from their tribe's headquarters, and start the second youth council. And since then, other youth councils started. So they created a grand council of members, you know, that come together to represent all those councils. So every youth council is different, you know, and unique to its location. Like it was mentioned, the urban members that live in different areas, and how do you bring all these together? And I was just so fortunate to be in a school setting. It was under the Johnson O'Malley program, so we had funding that helped support the youth council in an education setting, and so every youth council has a little bit of different support, and so we did model after the tribal council as far as the structure of our bylaws, which is a whole other subject on developing your youth council, and which is unique. And every year the new members come in, and the other members educate them on those bylaws and how to run a meeting. And so there's always teaching moments, right? But the greatest thing is to see the young people take ownership. I, being a strong-willed person, had to learn how to sit back and let the youth lead. I think that's a huge important lesson. If they don't have that buy-in, and they're the ones that are developing these ideas, then it's just a Tammy idea. And so how do you hand off those responsibilities to the youth was huge for the success of our youth council. We were fortunate to be able to go to Unity every year, and so Unity being a part of the strengthening of the youth council in that small community was huge. And every member wasn't able to go. We didn't have the funding to take the whole council, so they knew that their time was coming, and they helped fundraise and support the ones that did go. And so just having everything well communicated, and
Okay.
I'm hanging there for that last word, but just communication is key, and letting the youth know that they don't have to go to a meeting. So that was one of those teaching moments for me. One of the members came up and said, "Do I have to go to this meeting?" And I caught myself saying no. But that put the power in that person's hand. They never missed a meeting. She stepped up and she attended those meetings because she was given her own free will. But there are consequences to not going, so there, you have to build that into. But anyways, I'm just sharing a little bit of my heart, my experience, and I hope that others will speak up that are in attending today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. How's John Leland doing?
I'm doing all right. Just reading through everything. We try to do. We've got bylaws which we change almost constantly because we have issues coming up. Our officers, they're staggered terms. We've got a code of ethics. Our election rules kind of went out the window. And but I let the kids. They run a lot of the day-to-day business. I mean, I want them to be the decision makers, and like my title is advisor, so I just advise them. And we just COVID's got everything messed up this year, so a lot of them haven't been attending, and it's hard to we can't make them do anything. So I struggle with that. But all in all, we this is going to be our first year we have to really fundraise. So we've got a group of parents that are going to start a booster club for us, and we'll see how. I mean, we're getting into new territory there, so we'll see how everything goes once this starts.
Okay, thank you, John. And again, know that Unity, we do have resources available to assist. Just let us know. Please put your contact information in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we'll provide any type of resources that will assist you. I see a good friend, Christine Porter, on the call. Christine, any thoughts? Christine, you have been the advisor for the Young River People's Council, and you guys have done some really innovative projects. I mean, you're involved, and I enjoy your monthly newsletter. that we get here at Unity. So we know what you guys are doing. How do you continue to maintain, especially now that we're in this pandemic and we can't do a whole lot of activity? You know, I know that Michael involves his youth council through webinars, or they use what is it, the Zoom meetings, and Michael is real creative with different apps. How are you doing to help the young people there in the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community?
Hi. Yeah, we're doing Zoom too. Kahoot's fun. Yeah, just trying to connect with them, I guess. One thing that we started doing was like activities that are hands-on. So we made masks, and then involving culture resources. We're hosting a shell etching class. So we're gonna have them send out the kits and host it on Zoom. So I either drop them off in the mail or at their mailbox, or mail supplies to them. It's a way that they're not like just listening. It's a way for us to do an activity together. So it's a little different. And I think learning the culture, because that's one of our goals, is to come out of COVID stronger in culture.
Yes. You know, Christine, and I know you don't like to boast a lot, but I'm going to boast about your youth council. I know, and it's not in our way, but I have to say, for those of you that are not familiar with the Young River People's Council, what they did was so powerful, and they probably don't even realize this, but this youth council created a tribal law. No taxing and driving on their reservation. This was developed by this youth council. And I know that young people may not see how powerful that is, but for us adults that work with young people, that's what we're talking about when we talk about how powerful our young people are. You know, they have their thoughts, their ideas, and they were able to create a law for their tribal nation. And so I know now when I go through Salt River that I have to turn off my phone. If not, I'm going to get fined how much?
I think it's only $50.
Hey, that's $50 out of my pocket. So if you're ever in Salt River, don't be texting and driving, because you could get fined. And just think how powerful that is. Young people being able to develop a law in their community. When we talk about youth having a voice, this is an example of that. I'm sorry, I know you don't like to boast, Christine, but I have to, because you guys are doing some wonderful things. And Michael, you guys have done some tremendous things over the years. I have to toot your horn. I know you don't like to toot your horn, but Michael, you're doing some awesome things there too. But you know, all these youth councils.
Oh, I can toot my own horn.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead. I'm just kidding, Greg.
But I know all these youth councils are doing such wonderful things within their communities. And it's so good. And I know in our culture, we're taught not to be boastful. You know, it's just how we are as people. We don't toot our horns, but every once in a while, we just need to, you know? Because I get excited when I see things like that. I get excited when I get Christine's newsletter, because they're constantly doing some wonderful things, you know, innovative things. And that's what I've seen in Indian country, you know, and Unity sees that. We see the talent of our young people today. So I know that I'm rambling, but that's what keeps me going when it comes to working with young people. That's my passion. It's always been my passion, even before tribal politics, you know, is that to see the talents in our young people today. And youth councils are doing that. You know, they're building these leaders that you see today. Ginger Martin, Michael Preston, you know. These are some, and there's so many out there that are doing some awesome things and contributing back to our tribal community. So I just wanted to share those thoughts with you. And Ginger, as our special guest, any last thoughts for our participants?
Just continue the good work, and wow, what trying times now, both just generationally and with the pandemic, but it's in our native blood to strive through it, survive, and move forward. So I look forward to any successes that are out there. It is exciting. I had no idea about the law. Congratulations to Salt River. That is pretty impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. And I want to thank all of you for joining us. I wish we had more time, but we all know we're working, whether we're working at home remotely in isolation. Again, we here at Unity thank you for your participation. We will follow up with an email and an evaluation form. We ask that you fill it out. This is our way of measuring our work. We will continue with this series. We want to thank our sponsors, NBC Universal, Bank of America Foundation, for giving these, providing us with the resources to continue some of the work we do here at Unity. And again, we ask that you continue to be involved in Unity. We are on all the social media platforms, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, we have it. So let's stay connected. As adult advisors to our youth councils or youth programs, we really appreciate your work. Without your work, our youth won't be able to get to our meetings, whether it be the Unity Mid-Year, Unity National, or their participation in our many programs. So again, we want to thank you, advisors. We really, truly, we see you at our conferences, and we know what you're going through. I used to be a chaperone at these conferences, and it's a lot of work. And I know that your young people appreciate you. So again, thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and be safe. We love you. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Good to see you, Ginger.
Good to see you,
Bye.
Mike.
Bye, everyone.
Yes,
Bye, Greg.
Bye-bye.
pleasure.